Hello and welcome to BonkTable. I'm Mass, and this is another Conquest Battle Report. And today I am going to be playing Dweghom List into Old Dominion. The Dweghom List is a very classic castle-style Dweghom List, so you get to see like Fire Wizard, and a bunch of Fire Forge, and a bunch of Firebringer Drakes. A lot of fire. And I'm going to be playing into a Fallen Divnity Old Diminion list. So, let's go look at them lists, because some of them are pretty cool. Here's the list I'm playing. It is called Dweghom Castle. This was presented to me by Judge Rollo, who is the American judge. We had a TTS game. He played this into me. I liked it a lot. I wanted to try it myself. So I was like, hey dude, I'm going to take the list and play it. And he's like, yep. And this is what it is. So I've had the experience of playing into it, and now I'm playing as it, so you know, helps development, figuring out where the weaknesses are, where the strengths are, and how to play it. What's really nice. We have a Tempered Steel Shaper Warlord who's running a Memory Breath, so Aura of Death +1 on the regiment he's in. He's in a 5-stand of Hold Ballista with Herald of Magma, so they're going to be Aura of Death 3. And there's 5 of them, so it's quite a long line. So if an MSU gets into them, they're going to be taken 5 times 3, which is 15 Aura of Death before they get to clash back. And Tempered Steel Shaper is just going to be auto-casting, you know, Unmake Armor and all the other stuff. So it's going to be super fun for my opponent to deal with this regiment. Then he's got a Fire Forge and 2 MSUs of Steel Forge. I like Steel Forge. They're much reined in than they were summer of 2023. Being Defense 5 was ridiculous. Being Defense 4 is much more manageable for a lot of factions to deal with. Flux power on them, allowing them to go to Clash 5, or getting +2 attacks to go to 6 attacks. I tend to just make them Clash 5, because when you Inspire, you're just rerolling 6s, and with an entire MSU, that's 13 Cleave 1s into somebody. And if you just say 13 Cleave 1s, you know, everyone's really excited to just take that, and you didn't really have to work very hard for them, while 6 attacks on 4s, you know, there's times when you miss a bunch of stuff and you could get like 9 or 10 attacks, so it's less. I also like the +2 clash for when you're doing impacts, especially if you march charge someone, because like you're going to be doing your impact 2 on clash 5 instead of 3, so it's still a lot better. That's what I tend to do. I always just go for the clash for the consistency. Then we got another Tempered Sorcerer who's on a Hellbringer Drake, and he's in fire. He's also got Fire Forge, and then it's also the exact same Warband copied. So it's 2 more Fire Forge, 2 more Drakes, and 2 Wizards riding them. So these guys are just running around, popping their Drake shots, casting Fireball, and the Fire Forge are supporting. So there's 3 Fire Forge in this list, what I actually do like about this list, and how it castles. Because you can kind of sack one of the 2 Fire Forge to keep people off of you to support a flank, or if they're trying to get into your Hellbringer Drakes. If they finally get into you, you can shoot incredibly well with the 3 units of Fire Forge and the Drake. Like, this is very much like a very classic style Dweg list with their walls, and they're just shooting. You're going to kind of see me play this a bit more open, so it likes to have the middle open and then either have the Steel Forge like jump them, or with the Tempered Steel Shaper's supremacy of spending shit tickets and then healing up. So if you're, let's say your Hellbringer Drake takes some damage, you spend some tokens, reduce damage, heal up to cover, and then your opponent does more hits into you, and then you can also spend those tickets on either like defense or resolve. Spending them on resolve is kind of funny, because you're just like, aha, saving there and healing, and it's like, god damn it. So yeah, there's a lot going on with these tickets. The generation isn't too bad. I played this a lot better than I did the last time I played a Dweg list, so it was Trifecta, and I kind of see the strengths of it more. I'm going to slow roll the rules, pause the video at any time, and yeah. What else can I tell you? Oh, yeah, please subscribe to BonkTable. I'd appreciate it. And, you know, like and comment. You know, you can write really anything. I don't have the auto mod on the comments, so you can really type anything. If it's something real bad, I'll deal with it, but most of the time it's just people asking questions, being supportive, so I really appreciate that. So, let's get on to my opponent's list. Here's my opponent's list. It's called the Fallen Pantheon. They're running a fully decked out Fallen Divinity who has Aura of Malice, Eternal Discipline, and what we do in life will echo in eternity. So one of these is Untouchable. The other one is Dread. Within 8 inches of the Fallen Divinity gives Regiments Dread. I believe the Fallen Divinity also benefits from it, but I'd have to double check. And what we do, you know, let's go find what we do, because that one's really weird. I did read it temporarily, by that briefly. Oh my god, there, it's all the way at the bottom. Okay, so it's a dueling thing. Sure, okay. I think it also gives the Fallen Divinity Flurry for some reason. Let's check him out. Does he have Flurry? Blessed, Cleave 1, Flank, Font of Tar, Harden 1, Terrifying. No? Okay, well. It said Flurry on the app, but that might be wrong. So, Fallen Divinity Warlord running 2 units of Canifers. Really solid MSU. They're actually like a really good unit, just with the Harden 1, Impact 2. They're on Defense 3 base and Evasion 2. That Hardened 1, so you got to get up into AP 2 to force them into Evasion 2. There are 5 wounds, and they have no resolve, so they really take a good beating. They really want to get into melee and use their Bless to get rid of more attacks and stay alive more. And then have the Archimandrite, I believe, is the one who can heal them. Just sticking around and healing them, and they can do a lot of solid work. We then have a Strategos with 8 Legionaries, who's running a Standard Bearer and Optita, what gives them Vanguard. Strategos just makes a medium as a light for reinforcements. He's got an armor, and then the Vexilla of the Lost. What is... I have no idea. Gains flank. Okay, so they're auto on. From the front. Yeah, that's the License of the Lost. So, okay, so Strategos coming on turn 1. Sweet. There's 8 of them. I think this is an overcommitment to Legionaries with the Strategos block. Like, this could be Praetorians in like a 5 or 6 block with the Strategos, and then running the Aura of Death, and that would be really mean. This is just a huge chaff unit. Let's just like kill me for Dark Power. But it can sit on a zone and it'll be really hard to push off because it's vanguarding up. What is it? 10, 15, 17 inches. So it's going to get onto a middle objective very quick on turn 2. And because there's so many stands of them, it's going to be a bit of work to clear them off. But I'm not threatened by this just because they're Clash 2. Once you get them into combat, all your Dark Power pool is going towards the Fallen Divinity. So you're not going to see always Inspire. The only time they're going to Inspire is on the charge. So you can just kind of grind this thing out and kill it. And get a lot of shots in it just because it's so big. And just blow it up so that you can get through, get back on the points, and recuperate scoring against this thing. Next, we got a Hero Deacon with 4 stands of Legionaries. Same thing, Standard Bearer and Optia. So they're shooting up the table. And the Hero Deacon's doing his kill and regenerate and all that stuff. So that's really fine. He's just generating Dark Power. It's probably all, like... It's all going towards the Fallen Divinity. Next, we have an Archimandrite with 5 Legionaries. Optia, so it's also vanguarding up the table. So these three blocks, basically turn 2, 2, and 1, are just like shooting up the table. Lastly, the Archimandrite has the unit of Moris. They're the melee guys. They're kind of fun. I don't mind them. They have the spell that allows them to like phase through people to turn to like ghosts and everything and just run through someone. It's kind of fun, but they really get shot up very quickly. Like Evasion 2 and 4 wounds. That's a kill me stat line. Especially against shooting, especially against my type of list, what is a predominant shooting list, what is very good into Old Dominion, because Old Dominion is not taking resolve anyway, so you might as well just shoot them before they can get to you. This list is putting a little too much focus on their chaff regiments, like the Masabaka Legionaries could be Praetorians, the Archimandrake and Hero Deacon can have their MSU Legionaries, and then those extra points could go into like maybe filling out the Canifers and more. And then that would support the Fallen Divinity very well. But besides that, it's okay. Like, the Fallen Divinity is the big workhorse here, so you really need to get the Fallen Divinity into the action at the proper time. So you can't commit it too early and get blasted off the table, and you can't commit it too late where the Fallen Divinity is not committing and being a force projection in your list. So there's a certain time frame where you need to commit the Fallen Divinity and ride that line out until you win the game. So with that, let me just slow roll my opponent's rules for you. Pause the video at any time if there's a rule you're interested in. Or put the list in your phone and then read all the rules. That's mostly the way I do it, to be honest. Man, there's a lot of rules, guys. Unstoppable, untouchable. There's another un in here. Untargetable. Alright, let's go to the scenario and get into the game. Alright, here's the scenario we're playing today. It's head-to-head, so you got your 9-inch zone with neutral. You got your friendly 6 on your side of the table, and you got your opponent's 6 for theirs. Simple scoring. You get 3 points for the neutral one in the middle, and you get 4 points for scoring your opponents. Sweet. However, you also get 2 victory points for killing the warlord, 2 for the character, and 2 for the regiment. So if there is the warlord in a regiment, that's like 6 points for killing it. Or if you kill a fallen divinity, that's still 6 points, because it is warlord, character, and regiment all in one, on one simple, easy stand. What's always fun and nice. This scenario and how you play it is pretty consistent. Both players usually tend to make a play for this neutral objective because it is closer. And then grind happens where they like grind them out, try and take it over. Someone tries to like put more stands on to score it, push the other person out. The other player is counteracting. So there becomes a battle for about, I'll just do it in this dashed line, like this part of the table. It's usually what it ends up being. Over that middle objective on the flank there. Not flank, but side. Someone is usually trying to commit, and then there hits a certain point where you realize you can't get more of your army into that fight, and what you've committed is kind of what you've committed, but you also, let's say, have other forces. And it's like, well, what do you do? Well, like, what type of force? Are they fast? Can they get over there? So you kind of look at it and you go, well, I'm going to make a beeline into my opponent's objective. What is going to force them to pull stuff from that fight on that neutral objective over to their zone to protect it, to kind of push you off. And then if they win that battle, they're going to push into your objective. And if you win the battle, you're going to take theirs and score to win. So really, that's kind of the trade-off. I like head-to-head. It's pretty good. It gets people fighting and moving over stuff. However, the board is kind of roughly split down the middle. And it's a terrible dash line. You know what? We'll just do a big line. It's kind of split down the middle. And you have to decide what you're going to deploy where. You can't undercommit, but overcommitting does hurt you depending on, can you get through stuff? Are you jamming yourself out? If you overcommit on one of these and your opponent stalls you out long enough, they'll score. So it's kind of force allocation you have to look at for it. And then if there's any, like, let's say buildings, we'll use orange. We'll use this Bruges color. No, fuck it, we'll use brown. So if there's like a building or something here, that'll really split the table. And so you got to really look at how you're going to commit, and then how are you going to get around and support each flank. If there's not like a building or anything in the middle, you can then use that middle part of the table more towards, oh, hey, we're winning this side that is the neutral objective. Okay, now we can swing a bit over to the enemy objective and start scoring that. That's the scenario. That's the game plan. Let's look at the table. Here's the table. We have, I'll just circle this. There's my opponent's objective in blue, mine in red, neutral in green. We have size 3 building, size 3 building, size 2 house. We agree on that. We have hindering and obscuring, the Ho forest. We got some weird water coming out of this rock, just doing a sploosh. This road over on the left doesn't count for anything. Then we have this size 5 building. There we go, perfect 5. Suppose this table got made and then some guy just walked over and dropped that thing there. I don't like that because it kind of just cut off like all of this, so it really restricts my opponent's deployment there. These rocks as well really restrict deployment and what's going on. This one not as much, just because there's only one of them and you can kind of still come in a bit from the side here for each player. But the building and the rock on the left side here, let's put an L, really messes up this whole like side and flank and just kind of puts a lot of pressure on the neutral objective, especially the building in the middle. So you're really only fighting for, I'll just do it in orange, like this. That's really all you got to fight over. And like on my side, that's more board space. On my opponent, that's a lot less board space to get around that thing. So that thing is just kind of crap, to be honest. On the right, that one's okay, but still kind of crappy. Like that, like it wasn't much. A lot of the terrain, to be honest, didn't really matter. Like the deployment on the left there between the black squares and the purple square were the big ones, and this like house in the middle, I'll just circle it in black as well. Like those dead zones really like restricted how much my opponent's force can get into me, and I used that well to just keep blasting. On the right side, it's a lot more open, and however I deployed more guns, but it's also I have no reason to go over and fight my opponent's zone. Like I'm playing Dweghom, you're not fast, so I was kind of seeing like how much my opponent would commit to that side, and then just counter deploy appropriately to just keep them off of my zone. And then, you know, once I clear them, like I'm gonna push forward from my end of the table up into theirs. That's the plan. That's kind of how the terrain really affected it. It was mostly the buildings here and just kind of like funneling us. So let's get into turn 1 and we'll see how everything goes. Here's turn 1. My opponent decides to keep his Fallen Divinity back into deployment, doesn't want to deploy it. I'm like, sure, whatever. He gets his mores, he just runs them up the table, so he's protecting his zone, and he's looking to beeline into mine to score it. Okay, that's fair. They're quick, they're kind of annoying, they do well in melee, they're a good choice. Not bad. I have my ballistas spread out, and I kind of sit here for a while actually trying to figure out where I'm going to put the ballistas and play around with them. Like initially I was going to put them in the orange here and like in this forest, and then I realized no, I don't really want them there. That's kind of where I want my Hellbringer Drakes to hang out so that they can threat project both ways around the building and try and use the building to reduce what my opponent can get into me. So I decide, you know what, I'm going to shove my whole ballista over as far as possible, and we're just going to be doing a gun sweep where we just kind of like push out, shoot guns, sweep over, and just kind of keep people off. My opponent has 3 things that are mostly taller than me, so I'm hoping to see those things on that side. So that's where I kind of just deploy, and they're going to be relevant. My opponent has the Strategos and the massive 8 stands of Legionaries. He just shoots them up the table looking for that zone. He's going to get on there and score it. Old Dominion, with their changes, have a lot going for them. The +1 to reinforcement rolls, the lots of vanguarding, the speed of getting mediums on turn 1s with the Strategos. Like, there's a lot more going for them, and they're getting a lot more done, so he can be this aggressive and set up on that zone. And also, it's 8 stands, so it's going to take me a while to actually murder all that down and do work. So far, that's our turn 1. Let's go to turn 2. Here's turn 2. My opponent gets their Hero Deacon of Legionnaires and their Archimandrite with Legionaries, and then deploys the Fallen Divinity. I actually roll pretty well, and I get both my Hellbringer Drakes with Wizards and a Fireforge with a Steel Forge. So I'm looking at the table and I realize that my opponent's running his mores up. As you can see, they just shot up more right to where they are. I'm like, well, best thing I got to counteract them is Steel Forge, and they're great to hold off my zone, so I'm just going to run them up the table like that and protect them. I start just kind of doing bait draws where I'm just like deploying stuff that isn't too critical. So like Steel Forge kind of run up there. My Steel Shaper casts a spell on himself. Because what I'm really waiting for is I'm waiting for my opponent to like bring the Legionaries closer. And once he does that, I get my Hellbringer Drakes. I just shoot them up 14 up the table. And they're both in the forest. And then I start dropping fireballs into the Legionaries, and I kill off a stand. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah, 8's dead. And there's some wounds on the back guy there. At this point, though, my opponent had the Archimandrite shot up the table kind of in the middle there, and was within, what is it, 10? I think it's like 10 inches or something. 2 Legionaries to cause interference. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. I'm just gonna roll and see what I get. It's 7 dice. Hopefully I get a cast off and just drop some fireballs, generate some shit tickets. Because that's the plan right now. Just generate some tokens, start getting work done, start saving those up, because I gotta deal with the Fallen Divinity. Ballistas, I'm pretty sure they shoot at them at some point. Yay, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. So with that, oh, and my Fireforge deploy there, because I'm looking at once the mores run into the Steel Forge, So I'll just do this. So, you know, we'll do this light blue. So Morays, you know, they're planning to get into the Steel Forge at some point. I want the Fire Forge later to just shoot them in the side and kill them. Like, that's what that is there. Also, it's a pretty good spot to sit in the middle, and you can force project out of there, like, doing stuff. Besides that, opponent scores 3 points. Good on him. But I am now bringing a lot of guns to Clash 2 Regiment. I'm not super worried about them doing enough damage to hurt me. I'm more so just unloading shots into them. Back with my opponent's Fallen Divinity, I believe this is a really bad play. Putting them in the middle like that, I think they're, like, next turn I'm going to farm them up until they're tier 2. What's fine, but they didn't, like, run their full 10 up the table. They only, like, went up 8. And they're in the center, and they're kind of blocked out by their own regiment and this building. So I'm like, okay, I don't have to worry about them for many turns at this point, and they can't become a force commitment. They're scared of me because they know Old Dominion is weakened to guns, and I currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guns and 2 more in reserve. So they're very scared of just getting blown off the table. However, they can, or probably should have, I'll just do this in purple, just ran the Fallen Divinity into this forest, half the shots, buy the Archimandrite to reduce the magic, and then they could have committed into Steel Forge and supported the Morais, got some Canfers around them, and commit them on, like, turn 4. But they're sitting in the woods being ready to do so. So if, let's say, instead I move forward, or, you know, do whatever. But that's the end of turn 2. Opponent scores. Let's go to turn 3 and see if how the gun line and the castle is going to hold up against this Fallen Divinity who's out of position. Here we go. Here's turn 3. My opponent takes the Legionaries, march charges them into my... Ooh, that is a terrible square. Who drew that? God. Just march charges them right into my Ballistae. I'm like, okay, Hellbringer Drake the first. You just move up and wheel and get into the side and then pop some shots into them. Hellbringer Drake the second just goes and pops some shots into them. First fireball goes, drops into them. Second fireball goes, drops into them. And at this point, my opponent hadn't moved up the Legionaries with the Archimandrite, and they were out of range of the Strategos Legionary block, so the fireballs were not getting interference. After that, Steel Shaper drops +1 Clash on his regiment, because I just want to hit, and then inspires clashes, so they go up to Clash 3. Sweet, I kind of made a little heart there. We'll just draw this a little better. There we go. And they go into the Legionaries, break and shatter them. Opponent gets all the dark power points from that, so it's like 8, 9 stands. I'm like, alright, that's fine. I still need to score that. My Hellbringer Drakes are kind of fine where they are. And then I deploy a Fireforge Brick, whose basically whole job is just get into that zone and score it. But I have destroyed one of my opponent's large bricks with no retaliation at all. My opponent did get one of their Canaphor regiments, but not the other one. They are running up there to support them. They're just running into a gun line to die. It's not very good. I get the rest of my stuff, and so my opponent... What do they do? I think I go on... These Steel Forge do something. I forget exactly what they do, but I believe they hit the Morais. The Morais run up to me, or maybe I just run them on the other side. I really forget what actually happened here. But I know they got in contact with the Morais. I know Fireforge shot Morais. I think they just moved up to cover the zone because I activated them early to like bait out some stuff, and I just didn't really want to march charge that far because I had no reason to. So I think the Morais like charged in, and they got bounced off, and then Fireforge shot into Morais. Other Fireforge just ran up on the table. No. I had to have charged them. Yeah, I probably charged them with the Steel Forge at some point. You know, I think I did, because they don't have any wounds on them, and I know they get wounds from, like, the Legionaries. So, yeah. No. Steel Forge, charge the Morais, do a bunch of damage. Fireforge shoot into Morais, do a bunch of damage. They're dead. Other Fireforge unit gets deployed over here. They're looking to, like, shoot into these Legionaries. My next unit, Steel Forge, didn't really have a place to go, because on the left side, like, I've already committed enough forces on the left that I'm just not worried about it anymore. I have enough things that can just blow up stuff. I'm starting to do little bits of work into the Archimandrate unit, who I'll circle in yellow. Like, you know, I think a fireball or a shot went into those guys at one point, just to tickle them. And I think I have, like, some pretty good force. However, my opponent starts moving over and swinging the Fallen Divinity to point this way. So now I'm looking at it, and I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Steelforge can't hop the Fireforge. So I'm like, you know what, Steelforge, you can get into the old Steelforge positioning, and then you'll just move up and over and kind of get in front to block the Hellbringer Drake and the Fireforge from the Fallen Divinity once it finally commits. But I got plenty of time. I'm wiping out regiments. I think my opponent is like a couple points away from tier 3. I'll happily give it to them, but because they're going to end up with 4 to 3 regiments left. Because I'm just like, come at me, I'm going to chew you up. You may be scoring by 3 points, but I am killing all your stuff to also score to win. So let's go to turn 4. Here's turn 4. My opponent with his Legionaries over here charges into the Steel Forge, Fire Forge, shoot them, deal a bunch of damage. Steel Forge, stab them, do a bunch of damage, they die. Fire Forge, run up and just like double march to protect from the Fallen Divinity. Fallen Divinity kind of just finally runs into the woods, not committing because I have a lot of guns and stuff ready to go into them. And the other Steel Forge shuffle over to follow up when the Fire Forge die, or, you know, do whatever what needs to be done. My opponent deploys their second unit of Canifers over here, kind of running at me to shore up the side because I've just kind of wiped out everything because they're just coming at me one at a time. My opponent has their other Canifor regiment run up into the zone. I then proceed to Hellbringer Drake, Fireball, Hellbringer Drake, Fireball, Ballistes, blow them all up, dead. And then my Fireforge, jump the Ballista, get into the zone so I can score for 3 points. Sweet. My opponent moves over his Legionaries and Archimandrate. I'm like, okay, guess you're next. And at that point, my opponent calls it. He doesn't see any way of him recuperating after this, because turn 5, I'm going to kill the Archimandrate and Legionaries. I'm then going to spin the Hellbringer Drakes towards the Fallen Divinity, and the Fallen Divinity is just going to get completely shot up. And then it's just the Canifers, and at that point, like, Steelforge will hold out long enough against the Fallen Divinity and Canifors. I have all the shit tickets. Like, it's going to go my way very well. I have a lot of army left, and even if my opponent kills all my army, I'm going to be outscoring them and I can stall them out, but I really don't see them being able to survive this much guns into them. So that's the game. Let's go on to the score. My opponent scored 3. Didn't kill anything, so they got 3. I believe so I get 3, and then I added up all the stuff I killed. So I killed Hero Deacon Legionaries, Strategos and Legionaries, Morais, it's 5. 5 times 2 is 10. So that's why I'm at 13. And we ended top of 5. That was it. We didn't go past that. Overall, good game. Pretty quick game, to be honest. I think we were done this game by like 7:30, and usually games last until like 9. But there was a bunch of like key mistakes that my opponent made, and I was very well aware of what I need to do and how to do it. Playing that game of 100k into Rollo, where he played this list, really made me understand what he was doing and why. And he explained to me like the idiosyncrasies of the list, where you're using the Steel Forge as flank support, or you're just like using them to plug up a hole. But majority of the time you're using like the Fire Forge just to do stuff, because you can easily shoot over the Fire Forge into things with the Hellbringer Drakes. Or you're making your opponent come into your Hellbringer Drakes as you just blast them, and the Drakes are beside each other to clear off one another. So that's why they were paired up. My opponent, the key mistakes here were the Fallen Divinity was basically a turn behind that it needed to commit. He didn't have force cohesion. And what I mean by this is that he did not bring his weight of his regiments and his forces on to me at once. Everything came at me in piecemeal, so it was always one at a time, what a castle list wants. So he played right into my game plan. He did have the scoring advantage, and he did not need to come off the zone or march charge my ballistas. He could have sat where he was, taken the beating. Archimandrate could have healed them up. Yeah, he's taking a pretty aggressive beating, but I can't take that zone until that Legionary unit was cleared off. He could have deployed the Fallen Divinity right behind that Legionary, or like, you know, slightly off between the Legionaries with the Strategos and the Archimandrate Legionaries, like deploy the Fallen Divinity there to rush up once they've hit it like tier 2 or tier 3, and use the Legionaries to protect the flank of the Fallen Divinity so it isn't getting mobbed. I do have a lot of guns, but a Fallen Divinity getting into my stuff is going to be really annoying no matter what, and, you know, dice are going to be rolled. We're going to find out how the rest of the tickets play out and all that stuff. But the Fallen Divinity was not relevant for the entirety of the game. I also think my opponent is running too much chaff and not enough work regiments. The Canifers should have been paired up with the Fallen Divinity. He was doing that on the right side on turn 4, but when he deployed that turn 3 Canifer regiment, he should just deployed it on the right side with the Fallen Divinity if that's the way he was going to go. Like, just keep those 2 Canifer regiments around the Fallen Divinity, because they do so much work with the Fallen Divinity and they support each other. Canifers clean up and keep the Fallen Divinity clear of stuff while still being tanky, annoying, and hard. And the Fallen Divinity is starting to be your aggressive point where you can go in and start wiping stuff out. So yeah, for my opponent, I would really get rid of that 8 block of Legionaries. It's way too much. Swap it to a Praetorian block. Maybe fill out more of your Canifers. Maybe go to like 4 or 5 stands. Or if you want to keep the MSUs, grab another Legionary MSU just to die for you. Strip off some of those extra stands off of the Archimandrake and Hero Deacon. They both don't want to be in combat. They just want to sit behind the lines and have their Legionary MSUs babysit them. That's fine. Mores, I didn't mind. They probably would have been better used into a different matchup. This one, it was like, yeah, come at me. I'm just going to kill you with guns or whatever. I don't really care. Curies are a fantastic regiment if you're looking to that. So that's the game. Thank you for watching. I hope everyone enjoyed that, seeing basically if you're having troubles into Old Dominion, bring some guns. If you like this battle report, we got podcasts on BonkTable. We got them on Spotify, I don't know, Apple Podcasts, a bunch of other stuff. We have, like, basically if you go to Buzzsprout, they're all listed there where they're at. But we also put those podcasts up on YouTube, so you can look at the meme. And sometimes they're both visual and audio. So sometimes we're like, have a tier list or stuff. I think that's the vibe-based one, which should come out next month. So, again, no, it's got to be coming out like 28th. I want to say 28th. Top of my head, like, oh, I think it's this one. And there's other battle reports if you want to look at them. Also, BonkTable is a Discord, and my wonderful co-host Cassandra has a Twitter. Have a look at those. I hope everyone has a great day. Bye!